Good afternoon and welcome from Ann Arbor. We're excited to have you all today for our Career Support at Ross webinar. My name is Diana Economy and I am the Director of Admissions here at Michigan Ross. I'm also an alum of the MBA program, and I'm particularly excited about this topic as somebody who's been in human resources, somebody who's worked with our career development office quite a bit through the years, to be talking to you about how to explore your career path. And with me today is my colleague, Heather Byrne. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Diana. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Heather Byrne. I'm the Managing Director of the Career Development Office. I've been at Ross for 12 years, and prior to this role, I was running the MBA program, so I have a really good idea and understanding of what the student experience is like, and I've been leveraging that a lot in my new role running the Career Office. I know we have a lot of different people on the line today, some of you who've already been admitted, so congratulations, and some of you who've already decided to come to Ross, so we're super excited and thrilled to see you, hopefully at Go Blue Rendezvous Admit Weekend in a couple of weeks. And then I know there may be some on the webinar who are just starting to explore and find out what schools might interest them and what those schools have to offer. So I want to welcome everybody on the webinar. Today we're going to take you through, from a student perspective, what the career search journey is like, starting from when you got admitted in the summer before, and then what you've done your first year and on through until you received your full-time offer. So I've got some great students here that are here to share their story. So we'll start by introducing them, and we'll start with Mary Grace.
Hey everyone. Hi, my name is Mary Grace Pellegrini. I am a current dual degree student in my second year of 3 at Michigan in both Ross as well as the School of Information, where I'm focusing on data science. A little bit about myself. Prior to Ross, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 5 years, where I worked in different roles in nonprofit management as well as Homeland Security consulting, most recently at a company where I was a consultant for FEMA. Coming into Ross, I was a little bit of a career switcher. I knew I wanted to pursue both consulting more broadly as well as tech, and have been able to dabble in both. I first did my MAP at Amazon. So just a quick refresher on MAP. That is where I spent the last basically 7 weeks of my first year living in Seattle, working for Amazon. MAP more broadly is basically like a consulting project placed across the globe. So with my team at Amazon, we had 6 students who worked together, and we were working for Amazon's business marketplace team, trying to help them understand what services they might want to offer, what new category to explore. Since being in school, I've had 2 opportunities at internships. I spent my first summer at Microsoft, and this summer I'll be at Bain in Chicago. Other additional things that I've been involved with, I'm a CDO peer coach. Along with another classmate, we've helped to work with a group of first-year students throughout most of the fall and the early portion of the spring to help them through their career search, and as well as some of the more technical skills and or soft skills that come with recruiting. I've been involved with the peer coach as a peer coach for the Tauber Institute, which is another program I'm in. It's basically an affinity group for operations focused with business and engineering students. And then finally, I've also been involved in a bunch of different clubs, one of which has been the Michigan Businesswomen, where I did our corporate relations. And then I also helped to plan the Global Operations Conference as well as the Women in Leadership Conference. So Global Operations Conference, for example, is a conference that takes place in the fall, where we recruited different speakers from industry and academia to come speak about operations.
Thank you, Mary Grace. Sohail.
Hey everyone, so my name is Sohail Wali. I'm an MBA 2, no dual degree, unlike Mary Grace. So I'm done at the end of this year here, which is sad. But a little bit about me. Prior to Ross, I was in Chicago working for a strategy consulting firm named Healthscape Advisors, focused on healthcare strategy work, kind of across the spectrum, both from an acquisitions perspective and from a finance perspective. Knew coming into MBA school that I wanted to transition more to a finance role, and really worked over my first year and through my internship to be able to position myself to be able to do that. So my internship was with Citigroup and their investment banking division in Chicago, focused on M&A and industrials. And my MAP was at Dow DuPont, where I worked with 4 of my peers to develop a sustainable investment structure for Dow DuPont and how they evaluate investments that potentially they could use to promote some of their agricultural products that have more than just a profit motive. Outside of that, I'm involved with Wolverine Disaster Relief, which one of my peers have set up and founded here, which is a great network for linking Michigan alumni in areas that have been struck by disasters. And we'll lead student groups here, both MBAs and BBAs, to do volunteer trips down there. And then most currently, I am involved with the Marcel Gani internship program, doing an internship this spring with a venture capital firm located here in Ann Arbor. Again, just great perspective in terms of investing in earlier stage companies that are high growth.
Abby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Liederman. I'm also a second-year MBA, and I'm an international student. I'm from Canada originally. Prior to Ross, I worked both in Toronto and Canada, as well as in the UK, doing retail analytics, retail, as well as working at a tech startup, so sort of a range of everything. And, you know, what really brought me to my MBA as well as Ross was being an international student. I was really excited about finding a school where I could really build my network in the US and start my career there. So that was sort of impetus for me. My MAP was with Principal Financial, and we worked on a change management strategy, focusing on how we could help Principal Financial evolve their internal culture to support tech transformation, as well as sort of a pivot towards the digital space. So it was a lot of fun, and we got to travel domestically across Iowa, San Francisco, New York, as well as LA. In terms of my internship, I spent the summer in Chicago at EY in their M&A strategy consulting practice, and I'll be going back full time. Similar to Mary Grace as well as Sohail, I'm a peer coach in the strategy consulting space. Also involved with a bunch of different groups on campus. So I'm the executive creative director for Follies, which is our annual comedy show. I'm also part of our venture capital space or investment funds. So both on Founders Fund as well as Wolverine Venture Fund. And with the venture funds, we invest real capital into businesses both locally as well as nationally and internationally.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Carter, second-year MBA student. So getting ready to graduate here in a couple of months, unfortunately. Comes too soon. Before Ross, I spent my entire career doing disaster relief and development in sub-Saharan Africa, primarily Kenya and South Sudan. So I really came to Ross to explore business solutions to poverty. I believe business is the most powerful force for positive change in the world. For my MAP, it was very much in line with that goal. I was actually hunting crocodiles in the Amazon, not Seattle, but in Peru. So our project was to work with the National Park Service of Peru and to develop a sustainable business model for the commercialization of bushmeat, which would include crocodile, deer, wild boar. But really, we were working with indigenous hunters to create these businesses that would help them create income for themselves, but also improve conservation of the national parks. An amazing project, which really was directly applicable to my summer internship as well, where I was working on launching a startup to commercialize a low-cost ventilator to save the lives of infants in respiratory distress in low and middle income countries. And so I had a lot of experience from MAP in helping to create a new business to improve quality of life, which is exactly what I was doing over the summer as well. So my long-term career goal is to run a company focused on improving life for people globally. In the short term, I got to Ross. I didn't know what I was going to do, but ended up deciding to go into consulting. So I'll be going full-time to McKinsey Detroit for a few years, which is an incredible opportunity to learn business in even more depth than we did here at Ross. Been involved in a lot of different activities. As you can see here, I'm not going to list them off. I'm co-founded Wolverine Disaster Relief, that Sohail's been a key part of as well, as you heard a minute ago. The Emerging Markets Club got a chance to engage in consulting projects for companies as well, which help prepare for both internship and full-time work. Been heavily involved in ZLI also in launching a startup. Yeah.
Thank you all. So I know that a big part of going to business school, of course, is driven by your interest in your career, oftentimes career switchers. We know that more than 90% of students are career switchers. So I wanted to hear from you all what you all did to inform for yourself if a school would be the right fit given your career goals. So Sohail, you want to talk a little bit about what you did in terms of looking at data and information on employment?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about the decision, I think I was very fortunate to know that I wanted to go into finance. So when I looked at the decision, I thought about exposure. So would the firms that I potentially want to work for recruit at the school that I was looking to potentially attend? And I think the second thing that I was looking for was success. So were the students, not only were they exposed to those firms, but did they actually have good placement? So one of the resources that I heavily leveraged was the employment reports for every school that I was looking at. You can go to their websites and they'll make them available for a number of years. And I think I looked at the previous 3 years to get an idea of what firms within finance were recruiting at Ross, and then what the placement rate was. And I think one thing that really sold me on Ross was not only did every bank come to campus, looking at the placement rates over the last 3 years at the time that I was coming, it was close to 100% for all the domestic students. So that showed me that, I would get in front of the right firms, and then I knew that the structure was in place and the infrastructure was in place to make sure that I got an internship in the field that I was looking to get into.
And Mary Grace, tell me a little bit about the information you gathered from talking to current students and alumni.
Yeah, so a big thing that I did once I did get in, certainly there were a number of current students who reached out at the time as well, offering to be a resource. So I'm actually a dual Wolverine, and so I also reached out to former classmates who were currently at Ross. I basically tapped into the network and started talking to students who were either working in industries that I was curious about and or were involved in programs I was interested in. For example, I ended up getting connected to a student doing the dual MBA MSI program. At the time, I applied to the MSI program later into my first year, but I laid the groundwork into learning more about some of the different programs and also looking at career outcomes from current students. And people were really friendly and always willing to connect me to additional students for different things I was looking at, including like Tauber as well.
And Abby, as an international student, what were you looking for, and how did Ross fulfill those things that you were interested in having?
Yeah, absolutely. So, echoing what's already been said, I leverage both the career resources as well as talking to alumni and current students. And then I think taking even a bit of a deeper dive, I spoke to people in my home country, so in Canada, alumni of not just Ross, but the other schools I was looking at, to really understand what their career journeys were like, what they sort of went through when they were looking for career opportunities in the U.S. versus why or how come they came back to Canada. And that was really helpful in charting out my own path and seeing that there were a lot of opportunities and a lot of support from Ross to stay in the U.S. as long as I wanted, or as long as, the companies would support me for. But there were also opportunities to come home if that was the right fit for me as well. So talking to alumni was a really great resource to me. And I also did a lot of LinkedIn creeping. I looked at companies that I was really excited about. I saw which alumni were there and then which alumni had come from different countries. And that was a really helpful filter for me to see that there were plenty of opportunities across a lot of different companies, industries, cities, et cetera.
Great. And so a couple of the students mentioned our employment report. So for those of you listening in, you can go to our homepage, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a drop-down menu that says Info For. Just drop down and hit the Recruiter tab, and you'll be able to get to our page where you can find our employment results from the last year. And we're always happy to give more information as well, so you can just email us afterwards. Diane will give you my information. Okay, so that's kind of what you all did in terms of informing yourself for which school might be a good fit for you and what you looked into. What about the summer before you started at Ross? The students would like to hear, prospective students really like to hear what you did before the summer. So Tim, let's start with you. What did you do before the summer?
Yeah, so I had reached out to as many alumni as possible, just going through the database and just blindly emailing people. And that's the first time I was just amazed at the power of the Ross network. It was just unbelievable. I got phone calls with like CEOs of companies, people working across all industries I was interested in, just to get a better sense of what does a day in the life look like in this career path, and what is the trajectory in the future, opportunities for promotion and long-term plans. So that was incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah, I can go next. This is Sohail. I think I tried to first and foremost make sure that I was refreshed coming into business school, because it is a little bit of a sprint once you get here. So I got married, took some time off, vacation. But on a more serious note, I did actually also reach out to not alumni, but MBA2s that were already at the school that had gone through a similar path, had either done an investment banking internship, wanted to get more information on what their experience was like, both from a recruiting perspective and a summer perspective. I think the one thing that I'll point out is you can have an idea of what you want to do coming into school, but be open and flexible. That might change. And that's something that I tried to educate myself on over the summer to make sure that that is truly what I wanted to do. Talk to consultants, people in investment banking, private equity, etc. I'd say that was probably most helpful for me, just to get from them an understanding of the resources that were available to me. So when I got here, I was able to hit the ground running and really know what I wanted to go after.
Yeah, I also, at the early point in the summer, I guess late spring, I did connect with CDO a little bit. I sat down, kind of had some early appointments to brainstorm some of my ideas of what I might be doing leading into the summer. But then, kind of as Sohail mentioned, I also thought it was important to make sure I was feeling kind of refreshed a little bit, or had taken some time to decompress. After working for a number of years, I took a little bit of a non-traditional path. I worked at a summer camp for the summer, and then also did a lot of the prep work that CDO sends out. So sort of a combination there of trying to keep an eye on what my path might be once I got into school, but also taking some time to mentally just to take a break.
So this is Abby. So I'm actually a Forte Fellow, so had the opportunity before school started to participate in the annual Forte Conference, which is a women's organization supporting women looking to do their MBA. So that was a great opportunity, and I used that conference as the launch pad to take about 6 or 7 weeks off before school started, really sort of find time to relax, get ready for, B school. It is obviously really busy, really exciting, so wanted to sort of get my Zen space going. And I actually had applied to B school planning to go into tech, but using that time between when I ended my job and when I started school, I actually had some time to really think about what I wanted in my MBA and decided to pivot to focus on consulting. So that was a really valuable time for me as well, to just really think about what I wanted to get in my experience and write down some goals for myself.
You can hear how all the students leverage something different over the summer to get them prepared. And the Career Development Office, or CDO as we call it, has a summer prep course that you all will take over the summer that'll walk you through this really important reflection and preparation that you need to do before you get here. I think it's really important to balance that with kind of taking care of yourself, relaxing, and enjoying some of your own time. And if you follow our directions in the course, you will be able to do that. I also want to mention there are some of these pre-MBA internships and kind of leadership summits that people can go to. Those are absolutely not required. You don't have to go to one of those to get an internship or a job, not at all. We will have those opportunities posted for you. If you are interested, I would just encourage you to talk to someone in our office, one of the staff coaches, to kind of talk through if that's the right fit for you, because going to those can make sense if you are pretty clear on what you want. But if you're really still searching, I'd recommend just thinking through it a little bit more. And so over the summer, you will have a launch appointment with one of our staff coaches, and we will walk through a lot of those things with you, get to know you a little bit, and help you determine the right strategy for you so that you can really hit the ground running when you come to campus. So the other part is talking about selecting which recruiting path did you decide to pursue. So I'd like to hear from some of you about how you all decided what you were going to recruit for. We have career action days in the summer, which is part of orientation, and we have a lot of alumni career panels there, and it's a great opportunity to kind of get some more of the tactical things ready. So a lot of students do leverage that, but I'd like to hear from you all what you did to narrow the path for yourself. So let's start with Sohail.
So for me, again, I think I was pretty focused on finance coming in, and one of the resources that Ross offers, which I think is fantastic, is the investment banking silo. So it's, you start at Ross, and within the first 2 weeks, you're meeting with 40, 50, 60 of your peers, and you've got MBA 2s that lead that weekly meeting. And it really walks you through the process of what to expect from recruiting. So when firms are going to be coming on campus, what to expect from those conversations, and what to expect from interviews. So I'd say that was one. You mentioned career action days. I thought that was pretty important as well, just because you get an opportunity to sit in on 4 to 5 different panels and hear from people that work kind of across the spectrum of different industries. So even if you're not looking at something in particular, I think it's interesting to hear their perspective and it may pique your interest, right? And I remember going and sitting on that and listening to an investment banker. I remember listening to someone that worked in venture capital and thinking that was fascinating, ultimately leading to the internship that I had this spring. So I think that's another great resource as well.
Yeah. So actually the summer prep work from CDO was incredibly helpful for me. You go through this career leader assessment and it kind of gives you a ranking of what careers might be a good fit for you. Of course, it's not like the authoritative answer, but for me, it had number one was nonprofit management, which is what I did before Ross, so that made sense. Number two was private equity, and top five was also consulting. It might seem opposite, but I think they're all kind of related to impact. Private equity is taking struggling businesses and turning them around. Consulting, you're delivering impact to clients. Before that, I knew very little about private equity or consulting. I had never heard of McKinsey or half of these companies at all. But that kind of opened my eyes, and then I started having conversations, talking to people working in the industry, talking to students, decided that was a good path for me.
For me, one of the resources that I found valuable once I got to campus, looking a little bit further into Fall A, or at the conclusion of Fall A, was going on some of the career tracks. So I did go on the Design Plus Business career track out to San Francisco, where we went to visit a number of tech and design-oriented firms. I also went out to visit in Seattle to look at some firms there, in particular companies that traditionally recruited for Tauber projects. And I think those connections with alums or other people related with an affiliation with Michigan at those companies helped me to see better in practice what some of those different paths might look like. So for me, that was pretty helpful early on once I was at school to see things, in reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so similar to Mary Grace, I recruited for both tech and consulting. So I participated in the tech treks on the West Coast, which are a great way to get a feel for the companies, really see yourself in the city and the space, and determine whether or not it was a good fit. I also, once on campus, leveraged our FACT groups. So FACT groups are groups led by MBA2s who successfully recruited in the field that they're being, supported by. And it's about 6 to 8 students, and you meet every week, and you really talk about what are your career goals, how do you, from a technical perspective, how do you successfully recruit in the space. It's a great little network to have to really support you throughout the recruiting process. And that was a great way to solidify for me that I was excited about consulting. And then also, as being an international student, my FACT group leader was also international. So he was a great resource for me to understand which companies sponsor, how to approach recruiting from an international student and sort of the right questions to be asking. So that was a great resource.
Yeah, the CDO FACT groups are very unique to Ross. There aren't any other schools that do that to that level. We hire the most CDO peer coaches than any other school, and we have this FACT group set up so that you get weekly support from your peers, and then you can leverage our professional staff along the way as well, and of course the club. So I think if you tap into those 3 things, the clubs, the FACT groups, and our staff coaches and our peer coaches, you can get a lot of great support from a lot of different people who have different expertise in each thing. So it's a great way to leverage all of Ross. And so here's a list of actually all the different FACT groups that we have, and you'll sign up for these as part of your final part of the summer course. You don't have to do it until after Career Action Days, but these are just a list of all the FACT groups that we do provide.
Can you tell them what FACT stands for?
Oh yeah, sorry. FACT stands for Functional Accountability Career Team. So led by a CDO peer coach. And we work with the FACT groups to align the curriculum that they're working on with the curriculum that the clubs are doing so that we're all in sync and helping prepare you for whatever you're interested in going into. Okay, so the hands-on learning is a big part at Ross. So I think it'd be helpful to hear from you all what curricular or co-curricular experiences perhaps helped prepare you for your internship.
Yeah, I can kick this off. I think for me, with my internship at Amazon, I think that, looking at my map at Amazon, I think that helped me to prepare pretty well for my internship at Microsoft. A number of the things that we did for our map, in particular, as our scope of our map was trying to look at like a segment expansion strategy. We did a lot of interviews. We did a lot of research and primary source research within the company. And so I think that helped me pretty well as my Tauber project was similar in scope in that it was a team project. The first component of it required a scoping phase similar to MAP. So a lot of the skills that I used with the interviews and how we would structure that, I directly translated to a lot of the stakeholder engagement piece that I did for my work stream within my internship. And similarly then, having worked in tech and gotten sort of early exposure through Amazon to what tech looked like in Seattle, I think also helped me once I was at Microsoft for the summer for 14 weeks.
Tim, what about you?
Yeah, so I think in addition to MAP, there's so many action-based learning opportunities at Ross that really helped me. Specifically, Emerging Markets Club, we run several consulting projects every year, so I was involved in a few of them during my first year, working with Turkish Airlines, also a global impact investing firm, and another startup in India. So the ability just to get practice applying what you're learning in the classroom to real-world consulting projects was incredibly useful, because even if you're not in consulting, essentially every internship is a consulting engagement. It's 3 months, you're going to work on some project for a short amount of time. And so all these opportunities, not only through emerging markets, but also Community Consulting Club, Detroit Revitalization and Business Initiative, also offer projects as well as a few other clubs as well to give you that exposure.
Yeah, so I'm participating in the investment funds has been a really amazing way to get hands-on experience with the venture capital process, sort of end to end. I knew absolutely nothing about venture capital, investments, or anything like that coming to school, but felt that this was a really unique experience I wouldn't be able to get access to anywhere else. And what's fantastic is we're really trusted to quarterback deals from, sourcing out the pipeline of companies to running the due diligences to actually executing sort of the capital process. So that's been a really amazing way to get a really intimate hands-on look at sort of the venture capital, investment capital process. And we have a diversity of funds at Ross. We have 3 major ones, which are ZLCF, which is Zell Lurie Commercialization Fund, Social Venture Fund, Wolverine Venture Fund, and then also Founders Fund, which is the one I'm on, or one of 2 that I'm on. So you could really get a diverse perspective on venture capital and investment capital within sort of this one community. So really great hands-on experience.
One of the great things about coming to Ross is you get to leverage the Ross network, but also the University of Michigan, the broader network. And it's a very strong, supportive network that I think really stands out, because when you reach out to alumni, they always get back to you and are really, really helpful. So can we hear from you all how you leverage the alumni network?
Yeah, so I'll start it off. I think the investment banking recruiting process is a little more unique in the sense that you have to do a lot of the outreach. You have to travel out to New York when you're recruiting at a bank. You have to reach out to individuals at the bank to be able to set up coffee chats and set up informationals. And, obviously the recruiters that come on campus are a great resource. But what I was really surprised by was I did some LinkedIn creeping as well. And I would go on LinkedIn and look for anyone in the industry that graduated, from an engineering school, from a PhD program, from the BBA program, and their willingness to get back to me, not only their willingness, but how quickly they got back to me, and the fact that they went out of their way to then set up those conversations for me when they never met me before. I think that was astounding, and definitely something that if I didn't have, I don't know if I would have gotten the internship that I did. So very valuable in that sense.
Yeah, I think for me, so last summer working on the startup, I traveled to East Africa to do market research, and just tapping into the alumni network there in order to set up meetings was incredibly helpful. I had a lot of connections in the area already since I had worked there before, but being just cold emailing CEOs of companies and getting a response from them was unbelievable. Again, on spring break, I was traveling with a team of students here just last week to India to do market research there for the startup. And the network extends beyond Ross. So we emailed alumni from the broader Michigan community even. And this one particular alum set us up, connected us to CEOs of 2 different major hospitals in the country, invited us out to the largest private club in Mumbai as well, where she's a member. We had no connection to her at all other than just she graduated from Michigan. So it's just unbelievably powerful seeing that network in action.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo all that, not only with your internship, but also with MAP. So we did over 50 interviews with MAP, and all of them were with alumni, and everyone was more than excited to help us. So I thought that was really valuable. And then also in a lot of the companies, especially if you're in a large organization like EY. The Ross network or the Michigan network within the companies is incredibly helpful. Partners really want to support you. People in the organization want to take you out for lunch, want to grab coffee, and they're really there to be your champions in organization. So that was really valuable in my internship, and I know will be incredibly valuable as I go back full time.
Great. So we've heard a lot about the whole career search journey. I know we have some questions coming up. There's a couple things I want to mention. So one is, those of you who've applied and gotten in, and we're so excited to meet you, don't worry, we're not going to hold you to what you told us you were going to pursue, because we recognize that people change their minds, so we're here to support you no matter what you want to go into. So I think that's an important thing. So a couple questions that have come up. When can you expect to receive summer prep work from CDO? About a week after GBR, our Go Blue Rendezvous Admit Weekend, you will be receiving an invitation to join the course. And the first thing you want to do is do the career leader assessment that Tim was talking about. And then you will set up a launch appointment with your coach. And there are 7 modules to that course, so you want to make sure you really look at it when you first get into it, just to set aside some time and pace yourself to make sure that you're really ready to hit the ground running. And then there's some questions too about what if you're interested in a more niche path like energy, sustainability, impact investing. So we have lots of different fact groups, and we touch on those, and we also have just an off-campus fact group too, so people who are searching for these niche things can come together every week and talk about how they're leveraging the alumni network or connecting with other people and what other resources they've discovered to work on. So do you guys want to touch base on any of more niche pathways?
I also have had a number of friends I can think of, energy, for example, who they benefited from going on the career track like over fall break to go visit energy/tech-oriented companies out on the West Coast, as well as networking through different conferences that students put on throughout the fall, and also going through the alumni network. I know that those have also been pretty popular with a lot of the treks too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also a lot of resources, not just at Ross, but on the broader University of Michigan campus to network. So there's different innovation labs, School of Design has a lot of programs if you're interested in design thinking sort of as a path. So there's a lot of resources there to do networking within Michigan, but outside of sort of the more standard career paths.
A lot of the more niche career paths are off campus. So we have a program through CDO that we started this year called #OptOffCampus. And we've done a couple of panels where we've brought back alumni who have gone into more niche fields, and then we've set up coffee chats for students to talk with them. Plus, we've done virtual coffee chats. So we're working to facilitate a lot more of those introductions for whatever you're interested in going into as well.
This is Diana, too. I think one of the things as I look at prospective students or we talk to them is that I think that they think that their paths are more maybe niche than the reality is. And so, especially when you talk about energy and sustainability, the reason that you don't see an energy-specific fact group is because usually within energy, people, for example, are interested in energy finance or they're interested in energy consulting. And the fact group that they choose is more focused on the function maybe than the industry or the space that they're interested in. Because you're focused on healthcare, banking, right? And so you're not in the healthcare fact group. You do the banking fact group, but focus on healthcare in other ways, right?
No, I think it's a great point. There's a couple of peers that I recruited with that were also Urbers, so focused on sustainability, and they chose to do their focus was on energy and sustainability, so they did that through energy and investment banking, renewables investment banking. So you focused on the function, but there's absolutely a path there for you to be able to focus on the niche that you're interested in or the industry that you're interested in.
And I know this group has, quite a number of people oriented towards consulting or banking, but, there are, from the perspective of the niche path, I've been surprised at actually how pretty common it starts to become with, people who are interested in those. I know a number of classmates who are interested in beauty, for example, or people who are interested in hospitality and are pursuing off-campus roles in those positions and have been networking quite a bit with alums and who have opened up their calendars to meet with them in person, do calls. And so, as much as this group has operated in a lot of very traditional MBA post-career options, I have a number of very good friends who are navigating those paths and are having quite a bit of success.
Okay, so Does CDO help with employment sponsorship / USCIS, U.S. citizen immigration stuff? So I'll just talk briefly kind of on what, recruiting, if you want to stay in the U.S., if you're an international student, you want to stay in the U.S. So we do have, a list of companies that sponsor. One thing I think is important to know is that the company sponsors specific roles. So a company may sponsor a finance role, but maybe not an HR role. And every company is different. And this is where it's really important to communicate a lot with us, with CDO, and your classmates, because this is not one of those really clean and clear black and white things, because there's just a lot of different people involved. So our goal is to make sure you have the best information possible. So we do have a list of all the companies and the types of roles they sponsor for, and we'll help you through that whole process. I think it is also important to think about other countries besides the U.S. that you may want to work in post-graduation. I think that just helps keep your options really open. And I know ideally most of you want to work in the U.S., so that's what we're here to help you with, but I think it's important to keep your options open as well. We have a whole class that we teach for international students to prepare you for the career search process, given that you're an international student, and there's some nuances there. And then we also have our advisors in the MBA program office do joint appointments with our international center as you're getting ready to graduate. And so you can kind of have a one-stop shop to help look at all of your OPT, CPT, all of those kind of things that you have to work through. So we'll help you get there. And then there's a lot of collaboration we have with the International Center as well. When it comes to actually doing paperwork with the government, that is what the firm will do. We don't do that because it's company specific, and they're the ones that are, quote, sponsoring you for your role. But we know it's complicated. It sounds really confusing, and so we'll work with you to make sure it's really clean.
And Heather, one of the questions related to that was, where can we see a list of companies and roles that sponsor, roles you mentioned, because they're just sponsoring roles. Where do we have that on
the CDO website. We have a couple of actual spreadsheets. So one is just for Ross students over the last 3 years, where they've gone and what roles they had. And then we actually have a spreadsheet that we've worked on with the other top 20 schools that lists all of the companies and roles that have hired international students from the top 20 schools. So we work with our peers on that. So that's on our CDO website. If you're admitted and have matriculated, you should be able to get to that site in the career tab under in impact. Other question. What advice, recommendations do you have for those who want to recruit at a specific city after graduation? What do you guys think? You don't want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think one of the myths, and this is something that I heard when I decided to come to Ross, was, oh, you're going to come back to the Midwest because Ross is a Midwest school. And, ultimately I am going back to Chicago, but that has more so to do with the fact that I just love the city and I wanted to end up back there. But I know a lot of my peers were able to really go anywhere. If you're looking to potentially work on the West Coast or work for a firm on the West Coast, it will probably require a little bit more out of you to hop on a plane and go out there and actually talk to people. So there is that extra work that needs to be done that maybe someone that's at a UCLA or a West Coast school out there doesn't have to do. But I wouldn't say that it's impossible, right? I think being here in the Midwest opens you up to basically go anywhere as long as you're able to put in that work, maybe travel out there every now and then to talk to people in person.
Yeah, and I think over a third of our class ends up on the West Coast, and there's a lot of firms that come here from the West Coast to recruit our students. I mean, California itself has the largest Michigan alumni network out there, more than any other state. So, and actually I think most of our applications for business school come from California. So you can go anywhere. The companies that recruit here, all the big, large firms that are recruiting at all the other schools, and especially if you're going into consulting or something like that, those placements can be anywhere in the U.S. regardless of where you go to school. So there's opportunity to go everywhere. When students come and meet with me and they know that they want to go to a specific city, I almost think that makes it so much easier because we know exactly who's there. I can filter all the job postings on that city. So if there is a certain city you want to go to, that's just one of the ways it helps to focus your search. And the more focused you are, the more successful you will be. That's why the summer prep is really important. And once you get here, doing things that will help you narrow your focus is also really important.
There's a question about boutique consulting firms and specific options. And so, Heather, you've kind of referenced this, which is to say through the alumni network and through the resources that you've offered, students are able to navigate to particular firms. But is it a good idea, you think, for people to kind of have that list as they come in the door of like ideal companies, or how should they be thinking about that now?
Yeah, I think anything you can do to focus your search and narrow the opportunities that you want can definitely help, because you've got a limited amount of energy to put into this. So the more opportunities you have for yourself, the less energy you'll have for each one of those opportunities. So the more you can focus on what you want to do, the better you'll be able to concentrate your energy. I think students come into this thinking, oh, I'm going to recruit for consulting, banking, maybe I want to do some CPG stuff, and I'll just cast my net really wide and something will pop. And that's actually complete opposite of what really works. Recruiters can see a focused person coming a mile away. They can also see a really unfocused person who's coming to just practice on them to do an interview. So the more focused you are, the more attractive of a candidate you can be. It's just a recruiter reads that all over you, and they want someone who's super passionate and invested in doing what they're hiring for.
Yeah, and then just touching on the boutique consulting firm, I think the professional clubs are a really great asset to leverage. They work really closely with the CDO, and they can be a really great sort of middleman to connect you to different boutique firms that you may not know about. And specifically for consulting, we have the consulting forum every year where lots of consulting firms, not just sort of the major firms, but people across a lot of specializations will come on campus, and they're really excited to meet Ross students. So the professional clubs should not be an underutilized resource because they're really helpful, have really strong depth and breadth of resources, and very connected to the alumni network.
Absolutely. And while this webinar today was more focused on the broad picture of broad strokes of like what are the things and resources you can take advantage of to prepare for careers, we recognize that given your specific interests, you're going to want to know how specifically within healthcare am I going to be able to get to a pharmaceutical company that does this, right? And so that next level of detail, I want to direct your attention to our career website where we do have 12 career paths that are outlined in more specific detail. Including typically a webinar for each of them. So while this one had a broader theme to it, if you want to listen to, 45 minutes of a consulting webinar that's going to specifically talk about how do you get a job in consulting, that is a great, great starting point. The other thing I'll mention to you is that our student ambassadors, when you go on the webpage, you can filter by their professional interests, you can filter by the student clubs and organizations that they're a part of, and you can even just read the bios of some of the students that have said they're interested in pursuing banking or consulting or the like, and that'll give you a good sense of who's here at Ross. So I'll make sure to share those resources with you in our follow-up email after this webinar. And if there are specific questions or paths, we will certainly be able to answer those questions for you. We want to make sure that you get the information that you need. And a lot of the times it is through having conversations with students because as you see here from these folks, they're tapping into so many different resources to get to the outcomes that they're looking for you, and they can share also their classes, their MAP projects, and other things that they may have done that could have helped inform their path. With that, I know that we've got a busy set of folks on the phone and a busy set of students in the room that need to be able to head to their next class. So I want to thank everybody for participating in this webinar today. Thank you for joining us today. We will be sharing a recording of the webinar if you wanted to listen to it again, and I will also be sharing additional resources that may have been brought up today during the webinar itself. Thank you to all of you for being here, and we appreciate you joining us today. Go Blue!
Go Blue!
Go Blue!